Welcome back to r/JustNoHOA, where people share stories about their crazy homeowner associations that make us feel better about not living in an HOA. And in case you are new around here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join our awesome community. Without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled HOA and the City Contract, aka How the HOA Got Fined. So, some quick backstory to this. I don't live with an HOA, thank the divines, but I've had dealings with them. I studied environmental engineering in college and have a degree with a specialization in water treatment systems. Normally though, that is not my day job. Even so, recently a friend of mine who works with one of the neighboring cities asked me if I would not mind doing some tests for water pollution in a waterfowl preservation area. There had been some strange die-offs events going on and the city was trying to figure out where the source of the pollution was coming from. I would be operating under a special contract from the city and was given access to any location along this waterfowl area within reason to perform my tests. I will not go into detail about how the tests work, they are involved and can be a pain in the butt, but suffice it to say that I started taking water and soil samples from likely sources along the waterfowl preserve's borders. This showed me that there was a notable amount of nitrates and phosphates in the water, which I surmised was affecting the birds. Now to find the source. I followed the river up its length, passing a number of housing sites, a couple of apartments and the odd settling pond. Over the course of several weeks and a barrage of tests, these were ruled out as sources. The further I went up the river though, the stronger the concentrations became, to the point that it was dangerous for humans to even be in contact with the water. We are talking super fun type pollution. This was last summer. As I waded up along this area, I heard some splashing and the sounds of kids playing in the water. Not good at all. Turning the bend, I come face to face with a small dog leading into the water and 4 or 5 kids taking turns jumping off into the water. The heavily polluted, dangerous water. There's some lady sitting on the dock watching them and I approached her. I forget the exchange, but it boiled down to me telling her that I am from the city and based on some of what had been found, the children were banned from swimming in the river. The lady tried arguing the point until I told her that I was calling the marshal, code enforcement, to have the area barricaded off and she could explain her complaints to him. She grabbed the kids and scuttled off. The marshal did arrive, found that the dog was not built with proper code standards and condemned it, forcing the HOA who had built it to have it demolished within the week, or the city was going to do it and they would front the bill. That still left the matter of the pollution. That is where things got weird. Once I passed this HOA subdivision, all pollution vanished. I must have done 5 or 6 further tests to verify this, but yeah, no pollution. So I had my culprit. The next question was figuring out what they were doing. That is where my investigative side comes in. With the help of the marshal, I started going around the properties of the HOA, talking with residents. It was a few simple questions like, do you know if they are fertilizing the grass? And when do they do this? And do you know the type of fertilizer they use? Just gathering evidence. Remember the lady from earlier? Turned out she was the HOA president and I only found this out after she called the police on the marshal and I, reporting strange men wandering around her neighborhood. She called them something like 4 times in a day before the police flat out told her, they work with the city and if you keep calling, we are charging you. That did not stop her from following us around in her car and taking photos with her phone. Eventually we spoke with one older gentleman that broke the case as it were. The HOA president had been fining people for not having perfectly green grass. We were in a drought at the time, so that is no surprise there. After several of the people in the subdivision got fined by the city for watering their grass, she had taken matters into her own hand. She had first tried contracting a landscaper to spray the lawns with fertilizer, but due to various EPA regulations, he had apparently refused. The homeowner could not be certain what the lady had done next, but a couple days after that, some guys turned up with a large farm-type trailer of liquid and sprayed every single foot of grass the HOA controlled. even right down to the water's edge. With the homeowner's permission, I took several soil samples from around his property and then samples from the common area that joined the grassy area beside the river and dock. It took about a week to get full results back, but I had my answer. This lady had some contractors or someone spraying farm-grade fertilizer on the grass. This particular fertilizer is heavily controlled by the EPA and requires a special license to even possess, much less use. I presented all my evidence to my contact at the city and laid out just how serious the damage was, and that I was legally obligated to report the HOA to the state regulatory board for gross violations. My contract took the papers and paid me for my services, thanking me, but also noting that if this went to court, I would need to testify about my findings. Epilogue: the court was originally scheduled for March of 2020, but it never came to that. The HOA president entered a plea deal with the state where she and the HOA was required to pay for the environmental cleanup of the river as well as restitution to the state. The fines alone topped close to $250,000, and the cleanup, still ongoing, is expected to break $1 million itself. The HOA president got the boot, while the HOA itself was, last I heard, facing being dissolved by the state due to multiple cases of negligence and inept management. I don't know how they came in contact with that fertilizer, though I suspect some of the charges against the HOA president had something to do with that. Want to know the sad ending though? If the HOA had simply contacted the city or the state, they would have been given a list of approved fertilizers to use, which both would not have polluted the surrounding water and would not have put them on the hook for an environmental disaster. The number is right on the city and state's website. The HOA just could not be bothered to look it up. And guys, if you have watched until here and enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video and post some star emojis in the comments if you are a loyal subscriber. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled Disband the HOA. First, this ain't my story, but I read some on here and thought of one a coworker told me a few years ago. My coworker lived in a community with an HOA. He said he was receiving letters from the HOA pretty much on a weekly basis for things like his lawn was not maintained properly, he painted his mailbox the wrong color, the HOA decided to change the list of acceptable colors for garage doors, and he did not repaint his quickly enough to make them happy. Oh, and my favorite, outdoor grilling / barbecuing during days and times not approved by the HOA. We worked driving trucks around natural gas wells in the Dallas / Fort Worth area of North Texas. We worked 4 12-hour days and had 2 days off and then started over. If the company became really busy, we would work 5 days with 1 day off. So, as you can see, our days off changed every week. My coworker liked to grill on his days off when the weather allowed. The HOA said residents were only allowed to grill on Saturday and Sunday between the hours of 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock p.m. My coworker said he finally got tired of all these letters and took a day off from work so he could attend one of the monthly HOA meetings. He said he waited until the president of the HOA opened the floor for new business, and when he got his chance to speak, he said, "I move we disband the HOA." My coworker said he heard several people second the motion. The president of the HOA was forced by procedure to put the motion up for a vote. My coworker said there were approximately 40 residents at the meeting, and the only people who did not vote for disbanding the HOA were the 5 members of the HOA committee who were in attendance. My coworker came to work the next day and told everyone about it. I had never seen him that happy. And the next one is titled Racist HOA Manager. Hey y'all, so this morning I am scrolling through Facebook and I see one of the friend's suggestions is my HOA manager. I decide to look into his profile, and it is the typical old white man in their 60s type of stuff. Posts that he shares include hatred towards Muslims and wishing massacres on them. I am a Muslim, and he also has several crappy shares of black people and people of color of how America should be. I am not surprised. The moment I met this guy, I did not like him, but beside all that, he just never responds to any of our emails and is constantly dodging us. Now I am wondering if it has to do with our race and religion. I am hesitant to bring this up to the board members because they also seem to be like him. They are always picking on the Hispanic families in our community, always finding something wrong and actively walking by their unit every day just to look for anything to find them. Is there a lawyer that could help, or should I just start a coalition with the minorities and attend the next meeting to discuss this? Given the current atmosphere, I am more inclined to stand up to these racist a-holes, but I want to do it right. I would appreciate any advice, thank you. I screenshotted many of the racist posts as well. And users in the comments suggested, you need to report this to the PM supervisor immediately, this is unacceptable. And another person said, your most effective recourse is political, getting the other homeowners and other board members to replace the HOA manager with another vendor. I would not expect a lawsuit to be an effective use of your time and money in these circumstances, but you could still get a consult with an attorney to go over your options, the realistic outcomes and your costs to pursue them. Being racist and posting racist things on the internet in and of itself is not illegal. There are a lot of cases where a property manager won't reply to residents and would forward it to the board. They could be bad at their job, taking a long time to reply to everyone and not just to you specifically, even if you had direct proof you were discriminated against because of your race. Unless you have substantial damages, a lawsuit is not worth the time and money. Property managers are licensed by the State Real Estate Commission in many states. You could report evidence you were discriminated against because of membership in a protected class to them, and their license could be revoked. You could report it to the properties manager's supervisor or broker, and they could fire them or replace the rep in your HOA with someone else from their office. You could report it to the State Attorney General and the HUD or local equivalent, who can pursue an investigation over civil rights violations at no out-of-pocket cost. And they could issue fines or revoke a business license. Update to the racist HOA manager story. Hey y'all, I managed to start a coup by gathering support from the majority of the homeowners. Now I am on the board along with another member that ran with me. We now have the majority on the board and we just fired our racist HOA management company. Boy, it feels good. Advice: read your bylaws and get familiar with everyone in the community. It may come in handy one day. Thank you to this sub for all the help. And the next story is a little bonus story from r/Ripestories posted by user Ostlander or Ostlander, I'm not sure, and it goes like this. Hey Ripe, I was reliving some memories of when my daughter was in a very well-known girls group when I realized that I had actually had my own encounter with a Karen. The characters are me, nice dad, does not figure much in the story, and Karen. The dialogue is not verbatim, since this happened almost 20 years ago and I had almost forgotten the story. Background: back around the turn of the century, my lady wife and daughter were involved in a girls group. One winter the area group hosted a sledding party at their camp, which had an awesome sledding hill. Some of the mothers were not able to attend, so nice dad and I, and possibly a couple other dads, brought our daughters. It was a perfect day, sunny, no wind but cold, so the sledding was perfect. The girls had a blast. After sledding we all retired to the dining hall to warm up and get hot chocolate. Nice dad and I entered the dining hall and suddenly the temperature dropped 20 degrees, or so it seemed. Turns out a few of the older leaders of the area group did not think it was appropriate for dads to be at a girls group event. Sidebar: men were welcome if it involved doing heavy work around the camp. Oh well, no big deal. Nice dad was mildly offended, but way too polite to say anything. Nice dad and I enjoyed our hot chocolate and chatted. The dining hall featured a huge, gorgeous stone fireplace, which had a nice fire burning, just a storybook setting. After a while though, the room began to get smoky. The fireplace was not operating properly and was letting smoke out into the room. I went to investigate. I'm not a city boy, former Boy Scout, and most everybody heated with wood where I grew up, so I know how to manage a stove or fireplace. I was about to adjust the damper when I hear, Karen, "What are you doing?" No, no, excuse me. This Karen got right to the point. Karen was about average height, average build, with snow-white shoulder-length hair that flipped up at the ends and I think dark-rimmed glasses. I assumed she was someone in charge, at least she acted that way. Me, I noticed it was getting smoky in the room and... It's fine. Whiskey, tango, foxtrot? Me, if I adjust the damper, it will stop smoking and... Was I mansplaining here? Karen, it is fine, don't touch it. Okay, fine, whatever. I went back to chatting with nice dad while we continued to get the stink eye from the older leaders. The room continued to get smokier until it got unpleasant for anybody standing up. Karen's solution was to open all the windows. Now, the whole point of coming to the dining hall was so that everybody could warm up. As there was no wind, it did not help the smoke much, but pretty soon the girls started putting their coats back on. Nice dad and I just shook our heads. Here is the best part. On the wall next to the fireplace there were 2 sheets of white poster board. Written on them in marker in letters 3 inches high were detailed instructions on how to operate the fireplace properly. And thank you very much, Ostlander, for posting this funny story. And to be honest guys, sometimes I sort of miss, let's say, the old times, even though it's not really the old times, it's more like the beginning of 2019 / the end of 2018, when people were frequently reading entitled parents on YouTube. Sometimes, at least for me, it is sort of relaxing to read these funny Karen stories, even though sometimes they might be fake. I'm not saying Ostlander's story was fake, but a lot of the entitled parent stories are obviously fake. And the next one is another little special bonus story from r/ChurchDrama, which we have not read in a long time, and it is titled Pastor Ned Lost It All. This is a story I don't have much memory of, but it started in the 90s. As many have posted here of lying, cheating pastors, this one is fairly mild, but the man was still a hypocrite who got what he deserved. Rewind to the 90s, Pastor Ned was the head of our local church, a church that both my grandparents and great-grandparents were heavily invested in. They had donated money and labor to its upkeep. A second-floor attic was being turned into the new Sunday school room for the kids, but in many years it was not finished. I was told it was because of limited time and funds, but the child in me wondered why it still wasn't done with how good at remodeling many people who had helped out were. My grandfather and great-grandfather even put windows in with no help from anyone else. Ned's wife, we will call Terry, she was a great woman. She had short dark curly hair and glasses and often dressed like it was 1971 with dark colors and a lot of beaded jewelry. Everyone thought she was cool, and she really was. She led the Sunday school program for the kids in a roughly studio apartment-sized room on one side of the main building. The church itself was divided in 2, one building is where the sermons were held. The other had a gymnasium, kitchen, bathrooms and the side room for Sunday school, so every few months we had nice potlucks in there, which was fun. Ned himself was not just the pastor, but the lead singer and guitarist of the church band. My own grandfather played the bass, not a guitar bass, but the large stand-up kind. So every Sunday I was there, Ned was up front playing hymns and some church songs. Ned was an average-looking guy with glasses and a bit of a round face. He grew a thick mustache that reminded me of Ned Flanders, hence why I called him Ned in this story. My mom made me go to that church a lot as a kid, but eventually stopped. She and my older sister had a dislike for Ned that I did not understand. As the years went by, we moved away and I no longer had to go to that church unless I was visiting my grandparents. My sister also told me straight up that she did not like Ned and that he was a hypocrite. I asked her what a hypocrite was and she told me it was a person who acts a particular way but are not really like that and don't practice what they preach. Eventually a scandal broke out that spelled Ned's doom. It came to light that the remodeling of the church was taking so long because Ned had been embezzling the provided church funds and money from the collection plates to supplement his own income. His wife Terry divorced him not long after that. Their marriage, as it turned out, was pretty rocky because he was verbally abusive towards her and I think would not let her get a job. And when she left, his life spiraled down. Ned lost his house in the divorce and eventually disappeared after being fired from the church. He reappeared a decade later as a school bus driver. My sister was loading her kids onto the bus for school when she noticed the driver looked very familiar and took a picture of him. She later confirmed it was indeed Ned because his name as a school bus driver was in the school registry like the teacher's. And she had a laugh telling us all about it. You can tell by the photo she took that Ned was a shell of the man he had used to be. He had put on some weight, his hair was balding and grey, and he just looked broken and angry. Though, admittedly, his fate was pretty deserved. Though none of us could fathom how he ended up being a bus driver for children with the past church scandal, we were tempted to phone in his past to the school, but we never did. I guess we all figured he had suffered enough. After the church was given a new pastor, they focused on undoing a lot of the damage Ned had caused. Eventually, they made a remodel so extensive that the two buildings were combined into one. So, people did not have to go outside to walk in between them anymore, but I haven't been in that church since about 2003, so I've never seen what the inside was like after the remodel. I'm almost curious to go have a look, but every time I am near the place, I'm just reminded how much I don't like church anymore and just leave it at that. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.